I might just have to see you later.
Yeah.
I got kicked in the head by a yak in Kalispell.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
good start.
I mean, it was, we were halfway through the shoot. Actually, we were
Are they split hooved, the yaks?
That one was.
Or, okay. After he hit you in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we were castrating and
Yeah.
and shaving and all that. So I mean, I didn't take it. I didn't take it personally. I mean,
Yeah.
Had I been in the yak
Shaving
position,
what?
whatever we could reach.
Yeah.
You know, it was sweeps week.
Yeah.
You know how it is. But I love that. I love that you were going to be a veterinarian. This was. You're out of Houston.
Yeah. Houston. Yeah, I was wanting to go to Texas A&M and do the whole thing and be a veterinarian. I had a job. I used to visit my grandfather and stay with him in East Texas, you know, which was semi-rural during the summers. And I got a job at the local veterinarian there, you know, like sweeping up and stuff. And I really, you know, that's what I was going to be, I decided. And so, you know, I also got to kind of assist in a bunch of stuff, you know, all kinds of stuff. Dogs get shot, dogs with worms, you know, dogs coming in that are, you know, putting to sleep.
Sure.
I mean, just, you know, tough stuff, all this stuff. And
all creatures. Great
yeah,
and small.
operations, you know, and I was still for doing it until that one day in my third year of doing it, third summer, that we got called out to a farm and we were to castrate a horse.
Yeah.
And
Hell of a thing.
farmer did not want to sit out there with a horse, you know, while he recovered from the anesthesia.
Yeah.
And so they only gave him half of it. So he was like half awake. And they had tied up the horse, cinched him up to the front leg, back leg on one side. And, you know, got down, they slit him open and brought out the
calipers.
bolt cutters,
Yeah.
basically, with the size of them.
Yeah.
And that horse went insane crazy and stood up on two legs. You know, his one front and one back.
Man.
And it was nuts. and just, but it was so cruel that
nuts
was,
it was.
I said, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through a very weird period on Dirty Jobs where the first time we showed a full AI program, the network was pretty sure that'd be the end of all of it. I mean, there's something this is breathtaking if you haven't seen it before. Nobody's seen it before. But once they saw it, the audience went crazy. And then the network was like, oh, well, what else can you collect from?
Mm-hmm.
And then the show basically turned into a German porno. I mean, we just went to every barnyard there was. I mean,
what a steed.
God, there were ostriches, there were emus, there were raccoons. I mean, it's like everybody had a breeding program.
Well muscled.
I just think, it's a family show, you know?
Yeah.
And we got away with it because it was all about
Reproduction.
Well, it was learning. Like
Yeah.
for every exploding toilet or every misadventure in animal husbandry, you genuinely learn something, like where your food
Yes.
came from, right?
Yeah.
So we were able to justify
You
it.
learn that nobody's available on a 3-day weekend. That's what you learn.
That's what you
Right.
learn.
Yeah, but
Well, and then we got to the point where, you know, with lambs, with docking, you know, you cut off the tails and you castrate them. Those guys do it with their teeth, you know.
Really?
Yeah. For real, up in Craig, Colorado.
with their teeth.
It's actually
With what particular animal you said?
lambs.
Yeah, lambs.
So you get like a 2-month-old
Lamb testicles?
That's right. Yeah. So the lamb is on a post, the legs are spread, and you grab the scrotum, pull it toward you, nip it off,
Yeah.
push it back, expose the testicles, and you lean in, and you bite them, and then you snap your head back, and then you just spit it out and move to the next one.
Yeah. And the punchline is what?
That's the beginning and the middle and the end. Dennis. It's so shocking that, I mean, this whole thing actually turned into a TED Talk.
So they're spreads, you spread them up with your thumb. So you don't have your hands available. Is that it?
Well, you need 2 people. But if you do it the recommended way, so what the HSUS and PETA will tell you is you need a rubber band that's supposed to go around it. And then over a 2-day period, the blood, that just falls off.
It just falls off.
Except you got a rubber band around your scrotum for 2 days.
For 2 days.
It's
instead
miserable.
of the quick snap.
Correct.
Right?
And we did it both ways.
That sounds like there's a market that has been unexplored here. And maybe as entrepreneurs, we might want to go down this road.
Tap into it.
Yeah.
Take a bite out of it.
Yeah.
As it were.
Just going to say that.
Oh, my God. Hey, man, thank you for doing this. You said to me, why do they call it podcasts? There's 3 cameras pointed at us.
Yes.
We're just making a TV show, basically.
Right.
How many of these have you done?
I did a podcast myself, in fact, for a couple of seasons.
Why'd you stop?
Just got too busy.
Yeah.
With to be able to do it, and I left the podcast Audio Up, which is an entity out there that I was involved with in getting started up, and I left the entity, and I was just getting really busy with work, and so I stopped doing it. But
well, what attracted it to you in the first place?
Well, as an actor, I do research, to for every role I do in some way or another. Especially when I'm playing a real person,
sure.
A lot of times I get to meet that person if they're alive, and I've always had. That's why I love acting. Is because I've always been fascinated with what makes people tick. So I like talking to them and figuring them out in some ways, just a little bit at a time,
But in a podcast, you're not going to take that knowledge and turn it into a performance. You're just, forgive me if I ask this wrong, but are you genuinely that curious?
Yes, I am genuinely that curious. I really am.
As virtues go, where is curiosity?
As virtues go, well, I guess it's down there with the carnival, isn't it? And the circus, and the magic acts, right?
Well, sure.
Yeah, I guess that's where curiosity is. Or it could also be on the moon with Neil Armstrong. But, it's got a wide berth. But that's just, I do have a curiosity about it. To, what comes out of people's mouths, and then the way they look, the way they move. We all give ourselves away.
Everybody's got to tell.
Yeah.
So do you remember the first time your curiosity drove you into this business?
Oh, yeah. It was my first week in Mr. Pickett's acting class at the University of Houston. Because before that, I don't know if I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a musician. I don't know what I'm going to. Am I going to be a forest ranger? I didn't know what.
Veterinarian.
Well, that was already 3 years ago. I'd given up that. But I'm in his class, and my brother had taken from him, and so it, quite a few people that went on to work. And he
Randy's what, 3-4 years older than you?
4 years older, and he made acting like it was like psychology. It was about what motivates people and about who we are. And the question is, what would I do if I were that person in that situation? Now, that's very interesting, right? Because then it makes it individual rather than just anybody doing the part. And along with that comes really kind of feeling who they are, putting yourself in another person's shoes, and really getting to live that life. And it's turned out so fantastic because I get all these roles. Like I played an astronaut. I got my pilot's license from that. Oh. And I played a firefighter. I played 2 presidents and stuff. And I get to go on all these doors that say authorized personnel only.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the fun part. And find out stuff that in my lifetime I would never get a chance to know.
Yeah. So the line gets so blurry, right? 1 minute you're playing a role, and the next minute you're researching the role, or vice versa. And then the next minute you're really full on in real life, newly informed with whatever it was you learned.
And take that into my life.
Right.
It's Like, that's how I got to be a Renaissance man.
It's a blessing. Or a what do they call it? A
Or a
journeyman.
complete idiot.
A Renaissance man who
a real
flies a
jerk
plane.
know-it-all.
Yeah, or not a veterinarian.
Yes.
Oh wow. So Pickett, we had a Mr. Pickett back in high school. His name was Fred King, and he was a music teacher for me. But was he? I mean, for me, people talk about schools all the time. This school, that school, great school. Oh, that's a fine school. But it's never about the school, right? It's like saying, oh, that studio's great. No, man. It's about the project and then the people in the project. Our Mr. Pickett, I mean, would literally take you by the scruff of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Not that way. This way.
Yeah.
Did he do that?
Well, he would say stuff. He had what he called constructive criticism. You know what I mean?
I do.
And that would be you'd finish, you'd finish the scene and, to be quiet in front of the class. Then he'd go, well, of course, you failed miserably. And then
Had a light touch, did he?
But it wasn't really to put you down or anything. It was just like, did he tell you why and this and that and why did you do this when this person is like that,
Mm-hmm.
And it was constructive. And then you'd go and work on the scene for another 4 weeks and come back into class and do it again, And he, it wasn't about his ego, which I've been in a lot of classes that it's about their ego or it's about them. He just really, he loved to teach too.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, you guys had yours. You're talking about a mentor.
That's right.
Having a mentor in life.
That's exactly right.
Because it's not about the school. It's about a one individual that we are lucky enough to meet and that we're searching for. I mean, I'm searching for another one now. Even only now they're younger than me.
Are you him to anyone?
Yes, I am.
Well, that's a consummation devoutly to
Yeah.
Jewish.
Yeah, it is. And it when it comes along.
Yeah.
And so it's good to give back because it does. I find that I myself learn a lot in the process by mentoring somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first time I remember seeing you on the big screen, I was struck by how much fun you appeared to be having. This would have been the right stuff.
Yeah.
And
which is my favorite movie.
Is it?
That I've done, yes.
Really?
Yes. Because just that. What you just said is I grew up in Houston. That was Space City. The original 7 astronauts came out when I was in first grade. They wheeled the TV into the room to see Alan Shepard going up. And of those 7 astronauts, Gordo Cooper was the youngest, and he was also my favorite because he was like the rock and roll astronaut. I loved his name, Gordo.
Gordo.
And
terrific.
So, many, many decades go by there. That replaced wanting to be a cowboy or a fireman or anything like that right away. Everybody wanted to be an astronaut. Decades go by, and the book comes out. Tom Wolfe, The Right Stuff.
Staggering.
I got the book as soon as it came out. I read it cover to cover in a day, and said to myself, "Man, if they ever made a movie out of this, I want to play Gordo Cooper." Cut to a year later, they're making a movie of this.
Screw you, Dennis Quaid. That's a bet. Come on.
This never happens in life.
No.
And I wasn't Dennis Quaid then either. So I was just an actor messing around. But they're making the movie. I get to go in for the part, and I say I want to play Gordo Cooper, and I wait around for 4 months because another guy already had the part, and he decided not to do it, and I got it. And then I found out that Gordo Cooper lived 3 miles from me in L.A.
Wow.
And I called him up, and we became friends. And then and he turned me on to a flight school, Budwell in Aviation over at Van Nuys Airport, where you can solo if you want to, but you don't have to. And Bud was 3 years younger than aviation itself, so I figured this is the guy. So I wound up get my pilot's license, and then my instrument and all the rest of that, and then of course we did the movie, and Chuck Yeager was on the set every day.
Wow.
Every single day.
The balls.
Yeah.
On that guy.
Wow.
And I went flying with him in a little Bonanza over the lake bed, and there at Edwards, where you
Did he
landed
try to
the
make you
X1.
puke?
What?
Did he try to make you puke?
No, it's hard to get somebody to puke in a Bonanza anyway. It's a single engine plane, but he just still loved the land. He was one of those screw type things that it was. Just loved it. The movie bombed when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, but it's a classic now.
What a trip to watch that happen. I mean, do you remember sitting in the theater for the first time watching The Right Stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Weighing and measuring yourself and all of it?
What happened with that movie is it came out, and John Glenn was running for president at the same time that the movie came out, and it portrayed the astronauts. He was always kind of a Boy Scout thing, and I have all the respect in the world for John Glenn and
Sure.
all of them too. But it sort of showed behind the scenes they weren't just like upright, Boy Scouts all the time, which they weren't. They were fighter pilots, and
Sure.
that's the way they were going. And it was also another era in time, and so Walter Cronkite kind of put it down as well. But there was one thing that I think the flaw in The Right Stuff is this. It has to do with Gus Grissom, the second guy into orbit, the guy that lost the capsule. When he landed, it sank
Yeah.
like 2 miles down, and he almost went down with it. And in the book, Tom Wolfe created The Right Stuff, which is like a pyramid that you go up, right? And that you get to the top of the pyramid, and if you don't get there, you screwed up, you screwed the pooch, and it's your fault. You screwed the pooch, no matter what happened, if something is mechanical or whatever, no, it's you that were in the cockpit, so you screwed the pooch.
Consequences.
Right. He created that. Now, so he kind of, for dramatic purposes, made that seem like that's the way it was, that Gus was the one who screwed the pooch on that second, and he was responsible for losing his own spacecraft because he was more concerned about having his dimes and stuff that he was going to sell afterwards for, commemorative stuff.
Yeah.
But that isn't what happened. And, he really came within an inch of death. And what happened was that was the first time they had a hatch on the spacecraft so that they could blow it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing had come off. They had a window there, and it had blown out with the change of pressure coming down from space.
Right.
And that's what sank the craft, not him. But if he had been screwed the pooch, then why did they give him the first Gemini flight?
Yeah, right.
And why did they give him the first Apollo flight, in which he died and got fried with 3 others,
and about
the electrical system?
The worst way
Yeah.
you can imagine.
This guy was an American hero to be revered for his service, and and that of his family too, and to be portrayed like that. And I actually kind of begged for it not to be in there because of Gus's family. Gordo had told me about that, and
Really?
I wish it. But that the movie is still a great movie. I mean, I just love watching it, but.
There's just something.
I have digressed a lot on that.
No, not at all, really.
That's good stuff, though.
Yeah.
No, it's
One
great.
might say The Right Stuff.
Uh-huh. Look, man, that you can't. There's some things you can't script. Like I narrate this show called Deadliest Catch, Bering Sea, crab fisherman.
Mm.
It's been on 20 years. It's not on. It's not still on because it's a great show, although it's good. It's on because you can't script the Bering Sea, and as a viewer, you watch that and you're like, I truly don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When I think about pushing the envelope the way Yeager did, and the way a lot of smart people were just going, hey, man, not for nothing, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
What's on the other side
What's
of
on
that
the
barrier?
other? Yeah.
We don't know. Smart people, we don't know. And he gets in there and just goes for it anyway. I mean, that gives me goosebumps thinking about it. So to be around him, to be in a plane with that guy,
Yeah.
I unpack that for a bit.
He grew up, he was a lawnmower repairman. That's how he got into the Air Force, worked on engines. And he took that into the Army Air Corps and then became a pilot because of his knowledge of engines. And he locked us in a room before we did the movie, all of us guys, and told us his whole story, including the World War II stories and how he used to, he had several, he downed several of the German planes and a couple of the instances and how he did it and, what he'd been through, and saw the film, the actual film when he took, I think it's the F-105 Star Chaser, but that he was testing up at high altitude, about 110. He took it up there and he got as close to space as you could possibly get in
Troposphere,
a regular, in a regular jet. That's not, and he got up there and it stalled, and you watch this thing for like 5 minutes, on 3 axes, going this way, and this way for 5 minutes. And how you don't pass out from that. And he watched that clock all the way down while he was spinning like that, to where you can't even punch out until you get to about 25,000 feet. Otherwise you're gonna, you're toast with the pressure and with the oxygen. You're not.
How do you punch out when you're in a roll? I mean, you could be upside down.
That's the thing.
I mean, that's very
the
sporty.
thing. Yeah, he had to time it and have the. And then he ejected, and when he ejected, came out, and the rockets on the ejection seat caused his seat to catch on fire, which fed up into his helmet around here, and he had rubber all over his face, and he was blind, and now he's falling out of the sky from 15,000 feet, and comes down, and that's all for military pay.
That's the right stuff.
Yeah.
I read that Armstrong and Aldrin, before they went up, signed a few hundred headshots because no insurance policy
that they were coming back. Yeah,
there was that was the thing that their wives could sell.
Yeah,
right, when they were, they could have been stranded easily.
Oh, very easily.
Very easily.
Chuck Yeager was checked out and rated in 195 separate aircraft. That's some kind of a record there. But those guys, they got in there knowing that the chances were not good.
Coin toss.
They weren't, And
50-50.
Grissom was complaining about the way they put those things together because it was so fast. We were on track to get air in a decade, and before 70 we were going to get to the moon, and you had all these different contractors putting this stuff together, and wires are just hanging out, and he was kind of like on quality control, and then it wound up getting him.
People don't realize how close, how often so many things have come. What were we talking about the other day with William Safire wrote a speech.
Right, yeah.
For Nixon.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the speech was never given, but it was rehearsed.
Oh, about the moon landing?
Do if it
went
stay
south,
in the
yeah.
Tranquilitatis
Right.
Basin.
That
Right?
the rocket didn't go off.
Beautiful speech. Thank
Yeah.
God nobody's heard it.
Yeah.
But it's worth a Google, because, to imagine those two guys up there alive
Mm-hmm.
for a couple days,
Yeah.
but out of reach.
Yeah.
That
They probably would have gone on, 10 days, you think? You're going to run out of water. You're going to run out of.
You're probably going to run out of
air and all kinds of stuff.
You're going to run out of everything.
You know, Armstrong landed that thing. I think he landed it with something like 8 seconds of fuel left.
That's exactly right. 8 seconds.
Yeah, and
stuff.
They came down to the landing spot. It had boulders all over it. It was impossible to land.
No.
So he just took it, like, sideways right across the 40, 50 feet above, and looking for a landing spot. And you listen to his voice; it's as cool as can be.
Yeah, man.
And
ice water.
Boom.
What a privilege to be around all that.
It was,
It
was pretty amazing.
Well, I actually thought of that in the other night. I had a chance to screen your new movie.
Yeah.
And, you start thinking about these near misses and what happens if Reagan is here but not there, and says it this way but not that way, and so forth and so on. And
yeah. That bullet was an inch from his heart.
Crazy.
And a ricochet.
Yeah. A ricochet an inch from his heart.
Yeah, nobody thinks about
what if?
it. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's commence with some of the obvious questions. Forgive me as I impersonate an interviewer, but what attracted you to that?
To Reagan?
Yeah.
Well, it really frightened me more than anything else.
Because you had already played Clinton, right?
Yes, I had.
It always sounds like he's holding in a hit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I have.
In fact, the first day that I'm all dressed up as Reagan, and we're doing the part where the Pope gets shot, and we're watching it on TV, and I go, we should call
Wrong one.
We should call our military and find out what's going on. Oh, wrong guy.
Wrong guy.
We should call our military.
Yeah.
You remember that one, right?
That's Mark Joseph sitting over there on our sofa, who produced this thing. Great job.
But yeah, I was filled with fear about it, and say the truth, and I also didn't see myself. I don't look like Reagan. I don't really. And plus, total transparency, he was my favorite president, and so. And such a well-known figure. It's like playing Muhammad Ali. Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do some Saturday night
live
impression of him. That's it's not going to do.
No, you were convincing.
So, thanks for that. I wasn't fishing for it, but I'll take it. If the fish is going to jump on the boat, thank you. So, I said I really need to think about it. I didn't turn it down, but I said I really need to think about it. And so I got invited up to the Reagan Ranch. And when I came up there, the Reagan Ranch came out through that gate. It's up from the highway. It's 5 miles of the worst road in California.
Horrible road.
Really bad.
Yeah.
To think that the Queen of England went up that
Yes.
road to see him because their helicopter didn't work. Amazing. But you come out, you go through the front gate, and you come through, and there's the spot up on top of that mountain. You realize that Reagan was not a rich man, and he was a humble man.
Yep.
You can feel him. You can see all the work that he himself did there, and you can feel him, and you can feel the humility of the man.
Aggressive humility.
Yeah. But that's the thing that made up my mind, was the house that they had. It's not a tourist spot. It was the Western White House. The house is 1,200 square feet, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They had a king size bed, but it was 2 single beds that were zip tied
together. Yeah.
They had a GE Appliances because he used to be the spokesman for GE.
20%
and he
off.
bought that. He bought all that after he was governor.
Oh my gosh.
And 20% off. That's right. And they had the channel change that goes kaprong kaprong.
Right.
With and a little note from Nancy in the basket say, with how to operate the television with the 3 different controllers that they had to use to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the nerve center of the Western Hemisphere.
Right. The free world.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing that convinced me.
Yeah.
I I can see this.
I took my crew up there 5 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe
5 or 6. Yeah.
And same thing. It was the placement of those twin beds. It was his tool shed.
Mm-hmm.
John Barletta came
Yeah.
by.
Oh,
Right. He was still alive.
there too. And that was a shame. We'll get to that. But
Yeah.
I would have loved to have him been in the movie.
Well, that would have been something. By the way, Clint Hill, you guys ever cross paths?
Yeah. No.
Clint was very close with John. Clint guarded Kennedy, Jackie.
Oh.
He was the guy who dove on the
Oh,
back.
okay.
Yeah.
That's Clint.
Yeah.
Five presidents.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's been here, and those stories are important. But that visit was interesting on a lot of levels. But down in the museum, I saw something. I'm sure you did too. But it was an interactive display of the worst things that were said about Ronald Reagan while he was in office and while he was running. And I just mention it because we're living in a fairly divided time at the moment.
Very, very, very similar, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extremely similar.
And how
same players. You got Iran.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's a
instead
wheel,
of
right?
Russia, there's China. But
It's
it's
just a wheel.
but Russia's there. It's very strange time, dangerous times.
So were you? Because I think you're a couple years older than me, but you lived through his presidency.
Yes.
Did you remember the vitriol? And did you?
Oh yeah, warmonger. Kind of a bad actor.
Mm-hmm.
Bedtime for Bonzo. Airhead. All those things that that he was called, and a lot of that still remains today for a few diehards.
Yeah.
But this is the guy who won the Cold War. Yes, I will, give props to the Pope and to Lech Walesa, during that time as
Thatcher.
well. And
Maggie?
Thatcher,
Thatcher,
yeah. But this is the guy that really won it. And it was a plan that he had for a while. And that was to basically our economy, we could bankrupt Russia. Instead of meeting them militarily, we could battle them economically by forcing them to spend on military. And that's what brought the Soviet Union down, because government they weren't getting from their government what they needed to get.
You know the Yeltsin story after the fact when he came? He was in Texas, actually.
Yeah.
He was at a Randall's supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he knew the jig was up, when he saw all that fruit, all that food. Pudding Pops ultimately broke his heart.
Yeah.
At
20% off, too.
20% off, right now.
And you could buy 3 and get 2.
And there were like 6
Get
different
2 free.
kinds.
That's
Yeah.
right, 6 different kinds, so many
Yes.
flavors.
They didn't even have one in Russia.
Yeah.
But they really had food lines because that's the way, communist economy doesn't really supply incentive to people. And so, to get the food to market and all that, you're going to get paid the same whether you get there and, in a day or 4 days. And so what does it matter? So the economy doesn't really work that well. And that's, we had them at an advantage that way.
Well,
Because we had what people wanted.
you waited him out.
Pops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is, he hadn't won it, but he's fighting it. But he's having a hard time fighting it because they keep dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great editorial device you guys use.
Yeah, well, that's the way it seemed back then. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like
Gone.
dying. He didn't even talk to the Soviets for the first, I think, 5.5 years.
Yeah.
He didn't even talk to them.
How can I
Gorbachev-
negotiate with him?
Yeah, they keep dying on me. So
Well, there was one scene that I remember that actually this isn't in the movie, but it's a story that I heard where Reagan took Gorbachev when he visited the United States to the suburbs in a helicopter flew around and looked down
Mm-hmm.
at the houses and said, you see all these houses down there? This is the working class. These people work in factories. They work in shops. They're not rich. And Gorbachev was amazed because they looked like palatial estates
Yeah.
from his vantage point.
Yeah, I've been over to Russia, and I've seen that public housing that they have, and it's just doesn't compare. It's basically a box.
Yeah.
Is all you got, and it's not all that much. There's a lot of money in Russia too. I mean,
So much.
for the oligarchs and everything, and it was, it's always been run that way in a sense. It's still a mess today, if you ask me. But Reagan was I think he was the great president of the 20th century when it comes down to it, because what he did with the Cold War actually put to rest World War I and World War II, because it was a century of world war, and that was the end of that.
It's just incredible. I mean, really, the times make the man sometimes.
Yeah.
I guess, and it's impossible. I mean, I can remember my dad and my mom both kind of just shaking their head because they had seen those films. They remembered him as the GE spokesman.
Mm-hmm. I remember him, selling Baraxo soap on Death Valley days. He, narrated it, sort of like what you and I do.
Yeah.
Narrating
Yeah.
a thing coming on, and
Death Valley days.
And the reason he did that is because I don't think he was ever satisfied with his acting career, to tell you the truth, and he was kind of John Wayne got his parts, and a few others that came along, and he was kind of relegated to B movies, and the studio just never took him there. And then he married Jane Wyman, and she wins an Academy Award. While he's married to her, and he's feeling like Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
Kind of sitting at home and kind of washed up, is what he was feeling, and he became which was not really a celebrated thing. He became the vice president and then president of the Screen Actors Guild.
This, by the way,
Yeah.
what did I say to you when we walked out of the screening?
That you wanted to lean into that even more.
That's
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah.
That to me is the most, like, if you were to have taken one chunk of that movie and decided, okay, we're gonna live here, right? This is what we're gonna do for 2 hours. To me, that would have been the piece.
That would have been it.
I just think it's so, people don't understand that time nearly as well as they should. And they don't understand the power of that union.
Yeah.
In
And
the
the mob.
context of the studio system.
In the context of the times.
Yes.
It was, they come to find out after the Soviet Union fell, and they started releasing and rummaging around documents, that it actually was that the Soviet Union had infiltrated the unions of the United States, in particular the actors union and the those that worked in and around it, including crew people and stuff like that, and they wanted to get control, and
Because
almost did.
They knew then what, I guess it was Breitbart who said it, right? Culture.
Yeah, because if you,
Upstream
Yes.
of politics, always.
yeah, and you
Who controls the stories?
upstream, because you're talking about hearts and minds of people, and if you get control of what they're watching and their culture, you'll have their hearts and minds and be able to bend the politics as well. And so that was very interesting to me, because I myself never thought that was what was really going on. I thought that had to be some kind of paranoia
Yeah.
by our own government at the time.
Right.
And, there was the McCarthy hearings that were around there that it ruined a lot of lives, actually. But turned out to be true. And that's where he became steel hardened for fighting communism.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was there.
Yeah.
There were brawls
Yeah,
in fact, in those
there's one in the
union
movie.
meetings, they would come into a meeting and they use this diamond thing that socialists use to disrupt, where you put a guy on each side and in the corners, and then start agitating from there in a crowd towards the center. And, the next thing you know, you've got a brawl going on. And it seems like everybody's on separate sides there for some reason, but it was all the tactics they used. And so, but Reagan, fought communism. That's where he really saw its face and became dedicated to fighting communism right there.
Maybe another example of how the headlines catch up to your thing, right? I mean, he's a decent actor, but you're right. He was what he was in that world.
Yeah.
And then he finds this role in this bureaucratic position, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing sexy about it.
No.
But the world spins.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to the next. And I mean, it's such a slow burn. That's what I like about it. You can learn everything you need to know about that guy.
Yeah.
In those days.
In those years, between being an actor in the studio system to kind of in a bad variety show in Las Vegas, to becoming, a spokesman for GE and, selling soap on TV and ads, and working in this for the Screen Actors Guild, in a position like that. Those are the things that really prepared him for getting into politics. Seemed very natural to get into politics. Like after that, he went around for GE, not only to spokesman, but he went around the country to every GE factory and talked to the workers in the factories and really spent time with them. And that was the beginning of his political base.
The working man.
The working man, all throughout the country, not just in California.
Isn't it crazy how the labels have changed and how the associations have changed? Well, Republican, Democrat, whatever, working guy, the way you think of unions, all of that. I heard, you hear it a lot. I think Bill Maher said it the other day, and a lot of people have said it. I didn't leave the Democratic Party.
Democratic Party left me. That's what he said.
Yeah.
About leaving the Democratic Party.
Yeah. It feels like everything is shifting today and moving at light speed. And I just wonder, what do you want this movie to do? I mean, aside from make money and be accepted.
Well, first off, I wanted to entertain people, because that's what we go for. We want to go and enjoy ourselves someplace.
Yeah.
It's not a schoolroom or anything.
Not a lecture.
No, it's not. Only this is a lecture.
This is a sermon, actually.
Yeah, but and it's not a sermon. And I want them to be entertained. I want them to feel things, because I think that's why I go to movies, not to see things, but to feel things. And I think people will be able to, who were born after a certain time, be able to see what this country, how it used to be. And for those that were born even before, it can remind us about what we can be. That's pretty much it.
You're here because I wanted to meet you, and I almost met you at that movie guide thing 4 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I gave some award, and then I'm sitting out there, and then I ran into Mark here, and he was like, told me about the project. I'm like, I'd love to say hello. And then you walked on stage, called Chris Christopherson, which I love.
Yeah, that was fun.
Funny. Very funny.
Right.
And then you sang a song. And I said to Chuck, who was also there with me, I'm like, something that I'm always interested, again, the way terms change, the way definitions evolve. You're an actor, obviously, but I watched you sing that song. And it's another way to tell a story. But I don't think you were performing like an actor. I felt like it seemed obvious to me that music played a huge role in your life.
Yeah.
And I don't know a ton about you.
Still does.
Well,
Yeah, always has.
Why?
First thing I remember is like Elvis and Hank Williams, and growing up in Houston was very eclectic, kind of music that was there. And I always just loved music. It's been kind of the solution for me for a lot of things. The Beatles came along, and then it was, my grandfather bought me a guitar at Western Auto, by the way. When I was 12 years old.
Those guys sell everything.
Those Western Auto guitars.
I need a battery, a chassis, 2 tires, and a guitar.
But, first song I learned was Light My Fire, or tried to learn, because that's a real difficult song to learn, and on a guitar. And it just, and it's something as a teenager you could sit in your room alone and do it, and
Been there.
Yeah. And, acting, you got to at least have one other person. Otherwise, you're just still alone.
It's kind of tragic.
You're kind of like in the mirror.
And there's only one other thing to do alone in my room.
Been there, too.
If anybody's into that, that's okay. It's your choice. But, it was... and, it was...
We're young.
Great weight girls, girls.
Of course.
Guitars, girls. And at the time, so...
Well, that explains it 60 years ago, or 55 years ago.
Yeah.
But you're still doing it. You're writing albums.
I wound up kind of actually putting the two together. I had a movie, several movies that I wrote songs for, and that were music oriented.
Jerry Lee Lewis, didn't you?
And then wound up playing Jerry Lee Lewis. I didn't play the piano, but I had a year to learn it. And there's another one of those things about, finding out makes people think Jerry Lee Lewis was my piano teacher.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it was good. And
was he kind, impatient?
He could be like a 14-year-old schoolyard bully, or he could be the most generous, sweetest man there was.
Sounds like a guy named Pickett I heard about.
I saw him sit at a piano when we were recording the soundtrack. He sat there for 10 hours and didn't get up even to pee.
What?
Yeah.
That's not to say he didn't pee. He just didn't get up.
Depends.
It's like,
you were going to blink first, I can tell you that. But Jerry, he carried around in his back pocket a 38 in his back pocket, and in this pocket he had a bottle of Seagram 7, a pint bottle, that he soaked his pills in.
Oh my god!
And you didn't want to take a drink of that bottle, because I know a few people who did. But then he got sober the last 10 years of his life.
Yeah,
everybody thought he'd be the first to die, that he was going to be the first to go. He hung on. He was like 88. He had a stroke and then kind of downhill for a couple of years. But what a force, man. Nobody could play piano like that guy.
He didn't play it, man. He hit it.
Yeah. It was an athletic experience playing Jerry Lee, because you got to get this left hand going. And if you got that, you can pretty much do anything else.
Neil Young used to, he'd break half a dozen strings every night. He played so hard, and it's so interesting to see different musicians, different instruments, different. There's no playbook for it.
Yeah,
really.
But I'd put Jerry Lee up against any concert pianist anywhere.
Would you?
Yes, I would.
Did you ever?
Yeah. He was strong. He could hit it, but he was the most dexterous of players that wasn't anything.
Did you ever hear him play? Like
he could play with his feet, nose, he played with everything.
Everything.
Played with his feet.
Well, so I've heard.
He was alone in his room. What else are you gonna do?
He could only play chopsticks that way, but
just the right. I only need one hand for this. Jeez whiz, man. So, all right. So, is there a new album?
I did a gospel record last year that's been out, and actually, on Amazon, it was #1 there for quite a while.
Nice.
It was even beating Taylor Swift for an entire week.
Come on.
Yes, it was.
So the Swifties must have been really upset with you.
Oh, well, Must have been the Parent Trap, is what I say. So,
Right.
Dude, you were a babysitter for a generation.
Yeah, that's what I tell those kids that they're now like 30.
Yeah.
About Parent Trap, that I was your babysitter. You watch that like 40 or 50 times, and your parents put that on so they could go do what they wanted to do in the other room.
Yeah, right.
Just make more of you.
Make more of you. So funny. So, how long you been sober?
1990.
Wow.
Yeah, June 28th, 1990.
Was it?
And that's cocaine now. I didn't for 10 years. I did what they told me to do, but I do drink, and alcohol was never my problem.
Never a thing.
Never my thing. So I did go 10 years without doing that because I wanted to get past all the stuff. But then but it was cocaine for me. That was the thing that I could not put away until it was all gone. If it was sitting there, I couldn't leave it until it was gone.
I don't want to overreach, but I'm so interested. We've been having a lot of conversations on this thing about addiction, and not drug addiction necessarily, because I think addiction gets a bad rap. Frankly, like there are a lot of wonderful things to be addicted to.
Yeah.
Well,
cocaine was wonderful. Because it's 3 phases. Look, it's 3 phases. It's fun.
That's the title, Chuck. Jot that down.
It's fun.
Cocaine's wonderful. With Dennis Quaid.
No.
It's fun. And then it's fun with problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
And that's what any addiction is.
Mm.
The way it works on you, because it gets to a point where your life becomes unmanageable, right?
Well, happily, I don't have much experience with it. I think I've had some compulsions over the years.
Yeah.
But I haven't felt ever that there's been a chemical that had that kind of hold on me.
Well, that's a lucky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
No, because I live in the real world, and I hope it wasn't weird when you walked in. I've got 300 bottles of Nova Tennessee whiskey.
It's quite a hello.
Named after my dad.
I thought that was from Memorial Weekend leftover, but that's all right.
We're gonna have a big time. Dennis Quaid's coming by. I got 300 of them. Yeah, and we're gonna sign them all. But when I think of, well, I'll just ask, how did you do it? How did you break it?
I actually had one of those white light experiences, to tell you the truth. My band at the time, we were playing the Palace Theater down there on Vine Street, and the record companies came that night, and we got our record deal. And then we, just like that movie, The Commitments, we went back into the dressing room and we broke up. And we broke up because of me. Because it was just like I was not handling myself right, I wasn't. And I was operating on an hour of sleep a night, maybe. And, I didn't have things right. It really had affected my life to that point. And I went home and I had one of those white light experiences where I kind of saw myself losing everything, that I was either going to be dead, in jail, or lose everything that was really dear to me in the next 5 years, And so the next day I went and checked myself in to a rehab facility at St. John's Hospital, because they didn't have rehabs back then. They had one at CDC, which was in the basement.
So this isn't like on the beach, up in the mountains.
No, it wasn't Passages.
That's Passages.
Yeah,
No,
you're
in a basement.
It wasn't Transitions. It wasn't Pink Cloud. It was the CDC in the basement of St. John's Hospital.
Oh, man.
And, it was 28 days I was there, and came out. And then that was great. Went to meetings like every day, and for 2 years. And then, but I ground my teeth for like 4 years because the urge was still there.
Yeah.
It didn't go away.
Did you replace it with anything?
I replaced it with golf the day I got out of rehab. I replaced it with golf, something to really obsess and get mad at myself about.
There you go.
And
what was more expensive, cocaine or golf?
That's a fair question.
There's some parody there.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
that,
man.
yes, I guess you would say. But it was 4 years before that kind of compulsion left me. I just kind of and then it went away and it's gone. Just never had it. Never had it come back. I can't imagine it.
Yeah. You know Jason Everman? Ring any bells?
No.
He washed out of a couple bands. Pretty good guitar player, troubled kid, wrestled with all kinds of stuff, but he got so close and just same thing, commitment left. Got another band. Good guitar player. Same thing. Guy winds up going into the Rangers and fights in Kandahar and the Pushtan. I mean, the guy is just truly becomes an American rock star, and he's kind of a legend today. But the bands, Dennis, the first one was called Nirvana, and the second one was called Soundgarden.
Wow.
So, I have to laugh when you...
So they thought he was like a little too much?
No, he literally blew himself up.
Yeah.
I mean, he self-sabotaged every good thing that was happening to him.
Wow.
He just couldn't... it sounds from everything I've read about the guy that he didn't think he deserved any good thing.
Wow.
And so I think a lot of people do that in relative terms. They don't necessarily do it with seminal rock bands.
Yeah, with him, and I think with all of us too, is we're in search of our purpose, and sometimes you don't know what that purpose is, and if you ask God for it, you better be careful because He just might give it to you.
He might make
not
you
in the
wait.
way that you thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, this rhymes wonderfully. When you think about a guy like Jason who finally finds his purpose on the other side of the earth, running special ops, and you think of a guy like Reagan who's hawking appliances and booking roles he doesn't need, and still getting pissed off because he's in the 94% tax bracket, but he's not meaning purpose.
He also became president at the exact right moment in history. This country. We'd been through Watergate, went through all that, came along. There was, Jimmy Carter came along, who I voted for, by the way, because it was a change. He was honest. There was this, kind of like common man thing. And it was like, but we went down a road. You could say, you'd argue, well, it wasn't his fault. He was in the office, so he was stewarding it, but it was also the times with the oil and gas and all that, and the malaise that took over this country. And, he even said so himself on television about the malaise that had taken over. And we were a country in decline. We were. And, that started from the Vietnam era. And Reagan came along, and that was the perfect time for him he told us that, there's a light. Yeah. And, America is a beacon on a hill, and it's morning. And
morning in America.
We are not in a nation on decline. We are a nation that is just getting started, renewing itself.
I met the guy who wrote that, the ad man.
Yeah.
Hal Riney.
Yeah. That's
a good one.
Probably the most brilliant ad in all of it's the number one
in political history.
Political history,
for sure.
Yeah.
What do you reckon the greatest ad is? Just like the ads that stick. I'm fascinated by advertising.
Yeah, me too.
Just because because in the end, that is our business. We can't arbitrage, the filthy lucre out of the art. They need each other.
I think it was the most brilliant advertiser of recent history is Elon Musk, because he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything with a Tesla.
Yeah.
No advertising.
No ads.
None. All he did was name it after
Nikola.
the true king of electricity.
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, that's a great point. I worked for a company that didn't and still doesn't advertise straight to the consumer, Caterpillar, right? Because all you have to do is drive down the highway, and there's a big hunk of yellow iron, and
Right.
people get it, and they know it. And it's funny to me. Oh, Budweiser. Remember, this Bud's for you.
Yeah.
That was, I think, maybe the greatest tagline. Because this is another way of saying thanks.
Yeah.
Just thanks, man.
Yeah. It's true.
So, when I think of what a good ad man can do with a political campaign or with a consumer product, 20% off GE, having a sale, your business is not so different. You make decisions, you market yourself. And
we're all commodities.
We're all brands.
And that's kind of what
If
Mr.
we're
Pickett taught back in his acting class too, that, as an actor, what you get to know yourself and what you have to offer as an actor, about what roles you can play and stuff and what you would be right for, because you're a commodity. And so that's what you're going out to sell to people.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel?
Yourself.
Well, I mean, John Wayne was such a great example, obviously, and so those guys, they didn't, how do you feel about that? When you have the level of trust that comes with being a brand like John Wayne, and then he rarely went outside of that lane. I can't think of much, really. I mean, he was always the good guy, essentially.
Yeah.
Always wrapped in some kind of virtue.
Yeah.
And then you got a Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Rooster Cogburn was like the closest he ever got to bad.
Closest, but
Yeah.
but he was still infused with so much righteousness.
Yeah, but he was like, it was almost in some of his movies though. You hated him. He was. You got to understand. It's like The Searchers.
John
with
Ford.
Natalie Wood.
Yeah.
And it's the Comanche of, killed the parents, burned the home, and he goes taking his niece hostage, and he goes after her. I mean, when he finds her, he's almost going to kill her because she's been ruined. The rage that he had. He could play rage really well,
Oh,
John Wayne. And then
Red River.
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He was very jaded in that. So he was nuanced, but he basically played. He didn't take any. He doesn't. He had no patience for fools.
Pretty good chess player too, from what I read.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think where I was going was, you come to trust a brand in the way you come to trust an actor to deliver a certain kind of experience. And if it's Jim Carrey, it's a comedian, I want to laugh. He's funny. And then he gives you Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
As a performer, do you look at that and go, okay, that's too much cognitive dissonance? Or do you go, wow, good for him for stretching and making me think differently?
I say, it's he's done so much for the studios. If he wants to do something, let him do something. Yeah, but it doesn't. There's no guarantee, and that doesn't mean that the audience has to accept him in that role.
Yeah.
I think all actors. I mean, it's never changed really. Remember Tyrone Power?
Sure.
I like to ask people, do you know who Tyrone Power was?
Yeah.
He was Tom Cruise.
He was a badass.
Well, what I'm saying is, Humphrey Bogart was Jack Nicholson. George Clooney goes to Cary Grant or
Tom Hanks, maybe?
Yeah, Tom Hanks is Jimmy Stewart.
There you go.
The icons are the same. And it's like the pantheon of Greek gods that each star fills within that pantheon in a studio. And so you just have different people. There becomes a position available
Right.
when somebody retires or gets too old.
Table for two, right?
And so, somebody else fulfills that role, whether it's the femme fatale, they go with this or that or the other. And it's always been that way. They didn't come to me until later on in life. But
who did you replace?
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good one because it's kind of hard to say, to tell you the truth. Kind of tough to say.
You do occupy some really interesting real estate. Now that I think,
Maybe
about
I'm still looking for a position.
Maybe we
Still trying it on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's look. There is a certain amount of ambiguity, right? I mean, it's 150 movies.
Yeah, about that. Getting close.
How many plays?
How many plays? I'd say 2.5.
Well, hang on a second.
Plays? What are you talking about? Backwater of entertainment?
The backwater of entertainment. Hang on a second. A 1984, 1985 True West off
West,
Broadway
yeah, my brother and I
with your
did that
brother.
play for 6 months in New York.
Okay,
Another
so-
6 out here. That was fantastic. And did a couple of other shows in New York and did a lot of theater. That's how I started, really, was in theater in college.
Well, I was going to
which
say,
is a great way to start.
I was going to college in New York at the
Yeah.
time. My brother came to visit me.
Oh,
We
really?
went to see you and Randy do that show.
Yeah.
And we came backstage and actually met. I
Oh,
didn't tell you
really?
this before. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Because we thought we were very clever. It's like, hey, we're a couple of brothers who are going to see a show about two brothers who are played by two real brothers.
Yeah, we tell you to get lost.
Pretty much, yeah. But we did get backstage. Actually, you were very gracious. Both of you were very nice.
Yeah,
you know.
that was fantastic theater to
Yeah.
do that in too. The Cherry Lane Theater, and it was what a great time in New York in the pre-AIDS 80s.
I don't think that was pre-AIDS. That was 84 or 85.
It was
I'm
a
pretty
simpler
sure.
time. Oh yeah, they were in it. You know what, man?
It was the thick of it.
They called it something else, man. They called it GRID.
It was called
Yes.
Remember
right.
GRID?
Yeah.
Gay-related infectious disease, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking that the other day because, you know, with the COVID and the lockdowns and, you know, what a time, man, to know there's a thing out there, a reaper of some kind, and to not have a name quite yet for it, to not understand what it is or what
Are you
it
talking
does.
about AIDS?
I'm talking
Scary
about
time.
both. I'm talking
Both,
about
yeah.
COVID. I'm talking about AIDS. I'm talking about, it could be Ebola. Like, before you put a name to a thing, and the thing is still undeniably real. I mean, that's the stuff of monsters.
Yeah, AIDS was really scary. It was so insidious, and it was like it became for gay people. It really became a really horrible thing of getting further removed from society, and there was a lot of hate out there about that, and a lot of fear. People were dying, and alone. People were, and during COVID, it was the same thing. Where people would just, people wouldn't touch you. They would put you into a hospital room, and you would,
3 million people died
you
alone
couldn't see
in
your
hospitals.
family.
3
I know.
million.
Charlie Pride was one of them. We were going to do his life story. He went to get a Lifetime Achievement Award in Nashville and got AIDS, and next thing you know, he's separated from the
That was a
family.
loss, man.
And
You know who else was a
That's it.
loss recently? Was John Prine.
yeah, that's funny because John Prine. I had reconnected with John Prine, and I had connected with Charlie, and both of them, like within months, just went just like that. John
Yeah.
was actually one of the first that died in this country that was kind of a known person because he had been in Italy. It was on the road in Italy, and it had hit there first.
Yep.
You remember we were seeing the pictures from Italy and everybody in their homes.
Crazy.
And gosh, I don't think we've actually digested it yet, really. I think we're still
total
just trying to
PTSD. put
it over there.
Yeah, it's too soon.
Yeah,
In a way.
it was traumatic for everyone.
Yeah, I remember. You didn't know John Prine, but we talked about him at length one day because he wrote the saddest song.
I thought the name sounded familiar. That's there's a hole in Daddy's arm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sam Stone. There's a hole in Daddy's arm where
Where all the money goes.
He's such a great song.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
So wait for it.
Okay.
I'm building tension.
Oh, I know.
I'm building tension. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Sure.
Don't worry, man.
Just laughing. That's all.
I'll land the plane.
Just chuckling.
I'm just trying to figure out how to wrap this up without making it awkward for the guy.
Yeah. Well, whatever you do, don't tell him that you're trying to
there are
wrap
a couple
it up.
things going through my mind right now.
Like how long we've been talking?
Well, that's one.
Okay.
I'm guessing an
What
hour
else?
and 12 minutes.
That's pretty close.
Yeah?
Pretty close.
Oh, I used to be an actor. I know what an hour 12 minutes feels like.
I guess you do.
Feels like that last pause we just had is what that
Yeah,
feels
feels-
like. Could have driven a truck
Feels
through that
like
thing
that
there.
flight to
Well, that's
San
why I laughed.
Francisco, including the go around.
Oh, what would Mr. Pickett say in a moment like that?
There's
He
a
would
hole
say,
in
"Give
this
yourself an
conversation."
obstacle."
An obstacle?
Yeah, an obstacle to overcome. But he said obstacle for some reason.
Give yourself an obstacle.
An
No,
obstacle.
here's what distracted me. I don't know what the protocol is. I noticed the guitar. I'm like, oh, God, does he want to sing his gospel song or is that weird? No pressure, but it's there. If you
On my
want.
way to heaven?
Well, you want to do? Please don't. That song I did for.
I thought that was a great song.
for Christofferson.
Yeah,
It
man.
was written about him.
Why?
Actually, he wound up doing a song of mine, which may or may not be the last song that he records. But it's
God, is that even
he did a
remotely
song of
in tune?
mine called "On My Way to Heaven," which is
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
it's a
like it.
gospel song that he and Tanya Tucker and Brandy Carlisle are on, and it's coming out. It's coming out this year.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we went to dinner afterwards, and his wife said nobody ever calls John. They live over in Hawaii, and because they think he's a legend, and he won't talk to them. So he wants people to call him.
He's lonesome.
Yeah. So that's what I do now in my act when I do the song. I say, I went home and wrote this song, and then when I do it, I say, we're all going to call Chris and say hello. Tell him he's a legend.
That's awesome.
Please don't call me legend. My humble life's not through. It's got a beginning, a middle, but there still ain't no end to what I might yet do. I might just climb all the Himalayas, plant a flag on a planet or two. But if you call me legend again, please wait until I'm in my tomb. And please don't treat me special. It makes me feel alone. I cannot be the simple person that I've always been if you put me up on some throne. I'm quite capable of making my own mistakes, and I'm not afraid of failure. So if you call me legend again, I might just have to see you later. Oh, please don't call me legend. It makes me feel like I already died. That's just a third-hand story about some has-been, and it's probably a lie. So I'll just keep on keeping on trucking, yeah, year after year. And if you call me legend again, I might just have to box your ears, you know I will. I might just have to see you later, bye-bye. I might just have to see you later.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And the crowd goes wild. Mark your calendars. Reagan, the movie. It's coming out the end of August. You'll be
Yes.
hearing a lot more about it.
Yep.
Your album is called...
It's called Fallen, a gospel record for sinners. Because I called it that because I wanted to get the biggest audience possible.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
All right, well, folks, if you've sinned today or are planning on it, you're going to be in your room all by yourself trying to figure out what to do. Maybe play the guitar, maybe play the piano, maybe, who knows? Who knows? Just always remember, it's better not to be the horse all tied up there in the barnyard for the aspiring veterinarian to come by.
Keep on picking that thing because you never know where your dreams are going to go.
And as my
Talking
grandpappy
about
used
the
to
guitar,
say,
not the horse.
it ain't going to pick itself, friends. See you next week.
If you like what you heard,
And even if you don't,
won't you please,
pretty please subscribe. Well, I hate to beg and I hate to plead, but